I was ready to quit. I remember the day so clearly that even now I can see every detail like a picture in my mind. My books were on the small wooden table in front of me. My notebook was open, but the page was empty, not a single new word written down. My pen rested in my hand, but my hand felt heavy, as if it didn't want to move. Outside my window, the sky was gray and cloudy, and a light rain tapped against the glass. Inside my heart, it felt the same, gray, cloudy, and slow. I had been learning English for months, maybe even years, but the progress felt so small that I could hardly see it. Every time I thought I was moving forward, I made another mistake. Every time I tried to speak, the words came out wrong or didn't come out at all. That afternoon, I stared at the page for a long time and finally whispered to myself, maybe this dream is not for me. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'm wasting my time. I thought of closing the book and never opening it again. At that moment, I had no idea that something, or rather, someone, was about to change my mind. When I say, someone, I don't mean a teacher, a friend, or a family member. This was a stranger, a person I had never seen before, someone who didn't know me at all. That's what makes this story strange and beautiful at the same time. How can a person you've never met before say something that stays in your heart for years? How can a few simple words make you stand up when you have already decided to sit down forever? I didn't believe such moments were real until it happened to me. But the truth is, sometimes the right words arrive at the right time, and they can come from the most unexpected places. That's why I'm telling you this story today. It's not because my life is special. It's because I believe you might feel the same way I felt that day. Maybe you are also tired. Maybe you are thinking of quitting. And maybe this story can give you the push you need to take one more step forward instead of giving up. When I started learning English, I imagined a fun and exciting journey. I thought I would pick up new words quickly, like collecting pretty shells on a beach. I imagined myself speaking with confidence, chatting with new friends from around the world, watching movies without subtitles, and even traveling to faraway countries. In my mind, learning English was going to be like opening a door to a bright and colorful new world. But reality was very different. Instead of feeling free and confident, I often felt lost. I would learn 10 new words in a day, but by the next morning, I could remember only 3. Grammar rules slipped out of my memory like water through my fingers. I mixed up tenses, forgot how to make questions, and always confused in, on, and at. Sometimes I spent a whole afternoon on one page of my textbook, and still didn't understand it. Each mistake felt like proof that I was not good enough. I still remember one test in particular. I had studied for hours the night before. I reviewed all my notes, read every example sentence, and even practiced speaking to myself in the mirror. I thought I was ready. But when I sat down at my desk and looked at the test paper, my mind went completely blank. Words I had repeated many times the day before suddenly looked strange, like I had never seen them before. I guessed the answers, but deep down I knew I was failing. When the teacher handed the paper back a few days later, the big red marks confirmed my fear. I didn't even want to look at my score. My teacher didn't say anything hurtful, but I could feel her disappointment. Around me, other students smiled as they compared their results. I quietly folded my paper and put it away. That day, I walked home slowly, feeling like I was carrying a heavy stone in my chest. There was also the cafe incident, which I will never forget. I had decided to practice speaking in a real situation. I told myself, today, I will order coffee in English. It sounded simple, but my heart was already beating fast before I even entered the cafe. I walked up to the counter and smiled at the waiter. I managed to say, "1 coffee, please," without a problem. But then he asked me a question. I didn't understand. He repeated it, slower this time. Still nothing. The third time, I guessed and gave an answer. But from his expression, I knew it was wrong. People were waiting behind me. I could hear someone sigh. My face felt hot, my hands shook, and I wanted to run away. When I finally got my coffee, I sat in the corner, feeling small and stupid. After that, I avoided speaking English in public for a long time. You see, when you keep failing, or at least, when you feel like you keep failing, it becomes easy to believe that you are not good enough. I began to tell myself a story: I'm too old for this. My brain doesn't work for languages. I'll never be fluent. Why try? I skipped classes, telling my teacher I was busy. I ignored messages from classmates who wanted to practice together. My books stayed on the shelf, covered in dust. I replaced my study time with other activities, scrolling on my phone, watching TV in my own language, anything to avoid facing my weakness. I didn't realize that I wasn't just quitting English, I was quitting on myself. The lowest point came on a rainy afternoon. I was walking through the park, not really going anywhere. The rain started falling harder, so I found a small roof near a bench and sat there to stay dry. I had my English notebook with me, though I'm not sure why. Maybe it was just a habit to carry it. I looked at the pages filled with my messy handwriting, the lists of words, the grammar notes, the little mistakes corrected in red pen. Something inside me snapped. What's the point? I thought. This notebook will never turn me into a good English speaker. Without thinking too much, I stood up, walked to the trash can, and threw it in. I stood there for a moment, watching the rain splash onto the pages, the ink slowly spreading and disappearing. It felt like I was watching my dream disappear too. I didn't tell anyone what I had done. I didn't want advice. I didn't want sympathy. I especially didn't want anyone to tell me, "Don't give up," because I had already decided to give up. I was tired of trying and tired of failing. My dream of speaking English well felt like a bright balloon that had floated too high for me to reach. I told myself, it's okay. Some dreams are just not for everyone. I convinced myself that I would feel better if I stopped trying. I thought maybe I would find peace in letting go. But what I really felt was emptiness. That afternoon, I made a clear decision: this is the end. No more English classes. No more reading or writing in English. No more listening to words I could barely understand. I would focus on other things in life, things I could do without feeling like a failure. It felt final, like closing a heavy door and walking away. I didn't know that a few minutes later, something would happen to make me open that door again. As I sat there under the park roof, the rain slowly softened. The air smelled fresh, like the earth after a storm. Drops of water fell from the leaves of the trees, making a gentle sound. I noticed another person sitting a few benches away. They looked older, maybe in their 60s, with a calm face and a warm coat wrapped tightly around them. In their hands was a book, and not just any book, but a book in English. I could see the words on the page as they turned it slowly, reading with full attention. I found myself watching them, wondering how they could sit there so peacefully, reading a language I was ready to give up on. After a few minutes, they looked up and noticed me. And then, to my surprise, they smiled. The stranger's smile wasn't quick like the polite smiles you see every day. It was steady, slow, and warm, as if they had all the time in the world. It was the kind of smile that doesn't just touch the lips, but reaches the eyes and makes them softer. They closed their book carefully, placing one hand inside to mark the page. I could see the cover. It was dark blue with white letters, all in English. My eyes followed the movement of their fingers as they smoothed the page, almost like they were saying goodbye to the words for a moment. Then they stood up. Their movements were calm, not rushed, like someone who was used to living in the present. I thought they might just walk away, but instead, they began walking toward me. With each step, my mind started asking questions. Why are they coming here? Do they need something? Did they see me throw away my notebook? When they stopped in front of me, they tilted their heads slightly, studying my face for a moment as if they could see the thoughts inside my mind. Then they spoke. Do you speak English? The words were soft but clear, almost musical in their rhythm. I froze. My first instinct was to say, no, because, in my heart, I had already decided I didn't. But another part of me, a smaller, quieter part, didn't want to give up completely. I nodded. The stranger's smile grew a little wider, and without asking, they gently lowered themselves onto the bench beside me. It didn't feel strange. Somehow, it felt natural, like this was exactly where they were supposed to be. For a moment, they didn't speak. They just looked out at the park, at the raindrops sliding down the leaves, and then back at me. I saw you looking at my book, they said finally. Their voice was slow and steady, giving each word space to breathe. I nodded again. Do you like reading? They asked. My throat felt tight. I hesitated before answering quietly, I used to, in English, but not now. I almost whispered the last part, embarrassed by the truth. The stranger didn't frown or look confused. They simply nodded, as if my words made perfect sense. Sometimes we stop doing the things we love, they said, because they start to feel too heavy. That sentence sat in the air between us, heavy and true. I didn't reply, but inside I felt something stir, a feeling I hadn't felt in weeks. After a short pause, they looked straight at me and said, you think you are bad at English, but I think you are brave. The word brave hit me like a small shock. Brave? That was not how I saw myself. I saw myself as clumsy, slow, someone who could not even order coffee without making a mistake. My face must have shown my surprise because they leaned a little closer and continued, most people never try to learn another language. They are too afraid of feeling stupid. They are too afraid of mistakes. But you tried. You spoke. You learn things, even if you don't remember all of them now. That is already more than most people ever do. Their words sank into me slowly, like warm tea on a cold day. Nobody had ever called me brave for trying. It felt strange and comforting at the same time. The stranger didn't look away. When I was your age, they began, I decided to learn English too. It was very hard for me. My family didn't speak it. My school didn't have many good teachers. I failed many tests. I forgot many words. Sometimes I couldn't understand anything people said to me, even when they spoke slowly. But I kept learning. Do you know why? I shook my head. Because every day I learned one small thing, I was one step closer to my dream. Some days I took big steps. Some days I only took tiny ones. But every step counted. I didn't see progress every day, but looking back after months and years, I realized I had come far. Their voice was gentle, but each word felt solid, like a stone I could step on to cross a river. I don't know why, but I started talking. Words came out before I could stop them. I told them about my failures, about the cafe, about the test where my mind went blank, about the shame I felt when other people seemed so much better than me. I told them how I had thrown my notebook in the trash just minutes earlier. I expected them to interrupt or give quick advice, but they didn't. They just listened. Their eyes didn't leave mine, and their face stayed calm and kind. They nodded sometimes, not to hurry me, but to show they understood. When I finally stopped speaking, the silence felt comfortable, not awkward. Then they said, mistakes are proof that you are learning. If you make no mistakes, it means you are not trying anything new. A baby falls many times before they walk. You don't call the baby a failure. You call them a learner. They reached into their coat pocket and took out a small piece of folded paper. On it, there was a short sentence written neatly in English, carry your dream one more day. They handed it to me without explaining, just smiling as I read it. Sometimes, they said, the dream feels heavy. But if you carry it one more day, it becomes lighter. And then lighter again. You don't have to carry it for a year today. You only have to carry it until tomorrow. And then tomorrow, you carry it one more day. That is how dreams grow. They stood up slowly, tucking their book under their arm. Don't throw away your dream just because it feels heavy today, they said before walking away. Their footsteps were soft, fading into the sound of dripping rain. I sat there holding the paper, reading the words again and again. For a long time, I didn't move. The park was quiet except for the occasional rustle of wet leaves in the breeze. The paper in my hand felt warm, even though the air was cool. I looked toward the trash can where my notebook sat, its pages now wet and wrinkled. For some reason, I stood up and walked toward it. I reached in, pulled out the notebook, and brushed off the rainwater. The ink was smudged, some words unreadable, but it was still mine. It still held the hours I had spent trying. I slipped it into my bag. I wasn't ready to study for hours again, but I thought, maybe I can carry it one more day. That night, I didn't do anything big. I didn't make a new study plan or spend hours at my desk. Instead, I opened my notebook and wrote down just 5 new English words. Only 5. I said them out loud a few times, letting the sounds roll off my tongue. My pronunciation wasn't perfect, but I didn't care. It felt good to try again, even if it was small. Before going to bed, I looked at the paper the stranger had given me. Carry your dream one more day. I placed it between the pages of my notebook so I would see it every time I opened it. The next day, I added 5 more words. I listened to a short song in English, not to understand every word, but just to enjoy the rhythm and melody. I noticed that I could catch a few words I had learned before. That made me smile. The heavy feeling I had been carrying for weeks began to feel lighter. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't crushing me anymore. I thought of the stranger's story about small steps. I realized that even if I only learned a tiny bit each day, I was still moving forward. A week later, I found myself in my English class again. My hand still shook a little when the teacher asked me to speak, but this time, I didn't stay silent. I tried. My sentences weren't perfect, and I made mistakes, but I didn't feel ashamed. I remembered the stranger's words, mistakes are proof that you are learning. When I finished, my teacher smiled and said, good effort. It wasn't a big compliment, but it felt like a medal to me. That night, I wrote about the moment in my notebook, adding, today I carried my dream another day. After that class where I finally spoke again, something inside me began to change, not in a loud, dramatic way, but like a small seed waking up underground. Before, my focus was always on the giant mountain of English in front of me. I kept staring at how far I was from the top. I saw all the grammar I didn't understand yet. I thought about the thousands of words I still didn't know. I heard native speakers talking so quickly that I could barely catch a single sentence, and I told myself, that's impossible for me. That mountain felt endless, and because I was always looking at the peak, I forgot to notice the ground under my feet. But now, my eyes began to lower. I started to see the small stones and safe steps right in front of me. I began to set tiny, gentle goals, ones that I could actually reach without fear. Some days, I promised myself I would read just 1 page from a simple book. Some days, I would learn only 3 new words and practice saying them out loud. Some days, I would speak for 1 minute to myself in the mirror, no matter how many mistakes I made. And when I met those tiny goals, I didn't feel like a failure anymore. I felt like someone who could do this, maybe not all at once, but 1 step, 1 stone, 1 page at a time. Weeks passed, and then months. At first, I didn't notice much change because I was moving slowly. But slow doesn't mean still. Little by little, I could feel my English growing stronger. My sentences began to stretch, not just, I like this, or, I want that, but longer ideas, more natural thoughts. My vocabulary started to arrive in my mind without me having to search for it so hard. I could read messages from English-speaking friends without looking up every single word in a dictionary. One night, I decided to test myself. I watched a movie in English and turned off the subtitles for the first half. I didn't understand everything, but I understood enough to follow the story, and that made me laugh out loud with joy. And then, one day, I went back to the same cafe where my face had once burned with shame. My heart still beat fast, but I smiled as I stepped up to the counter. The same waiter was there. This time, I ordered my coffee in English and even answered when he asked, "How's your day going?" He smiled, I smiled, and I walked away holding my coffee like it was a gold medal I had earned. It wasn't magic that brought me to this point. It wasn't because I had special talent. It wasn't because luck had finally decided to help me. The truth was much simpler, and maybe more powerful. It was because I had carried my dream one more day, again and again, no matter how heavy it felt. There were still days when I woke up tired, when I didn't want to open my notebook. There were still days when I made mistakes that made me roll my eyes at myself. But instead of letting those days be the end of my story, I told myself, it's just today. I will try again tomorrow. That thought became like a shield I could carry into every hard day. It protected me from the sharp edges of disappointment. And I realized something important: giving up closes the door forever, but continuing, even slowly, even badly, keeps the door open for tomorrow's chance. Even now, after so much practice, I still make mistakes. I still forget words sometimes. I still freeze for a second in the middle of a conversation, searching for the right phrase. But here is the difference: before, those mistakes felt like proof that I was not good enough. Now, they feel like proof that I am still on the road, still moving. I have learned that there is no race to finish, no final test where someone will hand me a trophy and say, "Now you are perfect." Perfection is not the point. The point is to keep walking. The road of learning is long, and it is beautiful, because every turn shows you something new, a new word, a new idea, a new connection with someone you couldn't have spoken to before. This is why I no longer feel afraid that I will never be done. I don't want to be done. I want to keep walking this road for as long as I can. If you are watching or listening to me right now and you are thinking about quitting, please hear this: I understand you. I have been where you are. I have sat with my books closed, feeling the weight of a dream I thought I could never reach. I have felt the tiredness in my heart, the frustration in my mind, and the shame in my body when my mouth couldn't say the words I wanted to say. I know how it feels to think, maybe this is not for me. But I also know something else: the very moment you decide to give it one more day, you are already winning. You don't have to be fluent today. You don't have to understand everything today. You just have to keep your dream alive until tomorrow. And then, when tomorrow comes, you carry it again. That is how dreams grow strong. Your journey is only yours. It doesn't matter if your friend learns faster, if your classmate gets higher scores, or if someone you meet online speaks more fluently than you. Their road is theirs, yours is yours. Some people will run ahead, some will walk slowly, some will stop entirely. But as long as you keep moving, you are still traveling toward your goal. You can stop to rest, you can take a smaller step, but you do not have to turn back. Every new word you learn is a victory, even if it's just one. Every sentence you speak, even if you mix up the grammar, is proof that you are braver and stronger than you were yesterday. Encouragement is powerful. Sometimes it comes from a teacher who believes in you. Sometimes it comes from a friend or family member who tells you they are proud. And sometimes, like in my story, it comes from a stranger you meet once and never see again. But there is something even more important: you can give encouragement to yourself. You can choose to speak to yourself in a kind voice, not a cruel one. You can say, "I am learning. I am trying. I am brave." And you must repeat it, because your brain listens to the words you feed it. If you feed it kindness, it will grow strong. If you feed it hope, it will grow steady. You can be your own stranger in the park, the one who whispers, "Carry your dream one more day." I want you to think about the moment you started your learning journey. Maybe you wanted to travel, to work in another country, to read books in their original language, or to connect with people far away. That reason, that dream, is still there. It hasn't disappeared just because things got hard. It's waiting for you to pick it up again. It might feel heavy right now, but that is only because you have been carrying it in silence, without moving. Once you start walking again, even slowly, the weight will begin to feel lighter. Every day you keep learning, you bring your dream closer, step by step.